My name is Andrew Taylor, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the second season of Stick With It. Last season we had the fantastic host, Mark Hoffmeyer. Without his tremendous work and the fantastic interviews and guests he had, we wouldn't be back for a second season. This season, some amazing guests. I'll invite you now to settle in, relax, and enjoy Stick With It. Welcome aboard. This is Stick With It. My name is Andrew Taylor, and this is APA's podcast for the aviation world. In this episode, we're joined by Carolyn Vaughan, who's a human factors expert for the Qantas Group. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you for having me.
So human factors, Carolyn, we've been dealing with this about 45 or 50 years, haven't we?
Yeah, that's about it.
Are we getting any better at it, as a very general question?
The good news is we've actually fixed everything.
Have we?
No,
Excellent.
we haven't.
So thank you very much for listening.
We still have a lot of work to do, but I think we are getting better at a lot of different things. I don't think we'll ever reach a point where we're done with human factors, but we're definitely making improvements. But we go in waves. We spend a lot of effort and energy on one area, and then we have to go back and work on other areas that we'd maybe been working on a few years before that. I think especially from my point of view, when we look at human factors, the big improvements that I've seen are making sure that we're not just putting all of the pressure on improving the human factors of the people in the hot seat. Mm-hmm. So trying to get human factors a bit more integrated into other areas of the business. So looking at design of procedures and supportive mechanisms in other areas of the business and training other operational employee groups so that the pressure isn't all just on the people at the sharp end to trap errors, trap threats, all of that sort of thing, but to make sure that we've got everyone else in the business working to get the best out of their own performance and also to be able to support the people at the sharp end as best they can. So I think that's probably a big change that I've seen, that there's not as much focus on that, on whoever is flying at the, whoever touched the aircraft last, that sort of idea, but getting it more integrated into the broader system.
So that's really interesting. So I learned to fly in the late 80s, and the dean of the university, all our departments, so Ross Telfer, he wrote a book in the late 80s about human factors. So I guess if we do a little bit of explaining about that, it was about out of the war we came where a pilot would fly the aeroplane, he'd fly on a mission, yell and scream at the crew, drop the bombs, go back, they'd go to the bar, drink, rinse and repeat.
Yep. And
we learned, as the aeroplane's out of some pretty nasty accidents, we learned that unless we worked together, so that we built a team, we listened to the others, we had input, we took advice, that the captain wasn't always right, amazingly. So we worked on this concept of aviation was an early uptake on human factors, about team building and about listening to other opinions. So it's interesting you say now, as pilots, we're almost nearly good at that. But now we're looking at the organisation where we work and saying, perhaps, why don't we all get on board this concept of building a team around the entire operation or the way we do business?
Absolutely. So we do human factors training for people in the IOC, in load control, for ground handlers and customer service in the airport, all over the place.
And do they get what you're trying to achieve? Like, we understand because we've grown up with it now, I guess.
Yes, we tend to pitch it at a slightly different level just because they may not have the foundational knowledge. With pilots, they come in, they do their CPL, their ATPL, and it's going to have some level of human factors involved in it. So I tend to say, I'm not going to teach you Tenerife in a flight crew initial because you should know by now.
Sure, absolutely.
Whereas some of the other groups, we start really simple and we talk about red flags as threats. We talk about the old Swiss cheese reason model, looking after your slice of cheese. Don't let threats and errors pass through your area of the business so that it becomes someone else's problem. But then we also go into some of the normal strategies that we teach pilots. So we teach them the basics of threat and error management. We teach them RAISE, so the Qantas support language.
Absolutely.
We teach everyone to use that. We teach them NITS as a form of how do I get a message across and tell someone what I need to happen in a nice, quick, succinct way.
So if you're not familiar with NITS, that's a little acronym we use when we're dealing with a non-routine situation, which is so the nature of what's happening. So what's happening? This is happening. My intention is, so the I part of it, my intention is I'm going to do X, Y, or Z.
Yep.
The T of the NIT is time. How long do I have?
Yeah.
And whether or not there's anything special. So the S is any special requirements or anything out of the ordinary you need me to do to be a part of that. And in aviation, we always get an open and close. So I'll say this is a NITS briefing. Whoever I'm saying it to, okay, I understand. And then they'll confirm back to me. They'll read back to us. But we take that quite naturally as pilots, don't we? We're used to dealing like that, but I guess not everybody is.
That's true. And so when we're teaching dispatchers or load controllers how to get a message across quickly or try to get information out of someone nice and quickly, it might even be on the phone to a pilot, they will start by saying, here's the situation, nature, here's what I need to happen, the intention, you've got 5 minutes, and can you make special instructions might be, can you make sure you're at this gate? So exactly the same structure, but for different purposes.
Interesting. So let's go back before that. How did you get involved in this world, I guess?
Mine's a bit of an odd path. I wasn't the kid that came up watching planes in the sky and
Me either. So
any of that sort of thing.
I find that odd.
I actually was planning on doing speech pathology, and I was in year 12, and my brother was in hospital for an unrelated situation, and while I was there, a girl came in who'd been in an aircraft accident the Victorian mountains, and it just got me interested. I looked into it, and it was one of those events where there was nothing wrong with the aircraft. It was coming down to performance and basically they got into cloud, got turned around and ended up impacting a mountain, and it just made me start thinking about it. I knew I wanted to do something in the kind of the social side of things, but I also quite liked the technical thing, and it seemed to marry those two areas. So I went and studied aviation and psychology, and then a few years later came back and did a bit more human factors specific study.
So now you've brought these fantastic skills to flight. If we talk about the pilot part just a little bit, because we've spoken about the group, but now there's a guide that's just recently been released, and I better get the name correct, Preparing for a Successful Training Journey.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
So Qantas is in a growth phase. We're a cyclical business. We're busily hiring and promoting pilots.
Yes.
So I learnt to fly, and I was trained, and my opinion of a successful training journey is incredible lot of stress, complication, yelling and screaming. I had an instructor in Japan who had a stick who used to belt us with a stick. So I guess that's how I look at what a successful training journey is like. Is that still not valid?
Look, I would like to hope that it's not valid anymore.
Well, I'm still
I'd like to hope we've
guess.
moved on a bit. No, well, we don't want people to have to fall in a heap at the end of the training path. We know that it's going to be a stressful time for everyone, and it's always a demanding thing to go through. But we know that there are some things that can help people be more successful. Like a stick or a... Perhaps not anymore? No, that's not really what we're trying to encourage. Okay. So if you could stop doing that, that would be awesome. No, it wasn't me. I'm a victim of the training stick. Yes, we want people to help themselves get into a good mindset, so they're ready for training, to have some strategies or skills up their sleeve to help them do well as they're going through it, and also to be able to cope and be well at the end of it. Okay. We want them to look after their well-being. We don't want them to have difficulty with, family situations and living situations and all of that sort of thing. We want them to go into it a bit more consciously and with a few more skills to help them. So we had a couple of chats with Andrew Stewart, who was a jumbo captain retired, who's now a psychotherapist. Okay. And we spoke about mindfulness, and that really opened my mind, I guess, about the whole concept, because I'm a middle-aged man of a certain age and stature, and I'm not particularly mindful. So it did open my mind and started me thinking about it. So I would like to think that perhaps I'm classed as an expert or a subject matter expert when I go flying, but I get to the podcasting studio and I'm absolutely a novice and out of my comfort zone. So can we talk about going from being a very good second officer, a first officer, or a captain, or a Boeing pilot, or an Airbus pilot, how we change the way we think from being an expert in something to then going to do a training path, which we probably may not have done training for lots of years. So Yeah. One of the big things that we want to encourage your people when they're moving into a training path is to take on what we call a novice mindset. So as amazing as you've been at your previous role, whether it was with a previous company or it was a previous fleet type or a previous rank, to realize that when you're moving to a new aircraft or a new rank or a new group or whatever it might be, that in that new role, you're a novice. And if you can think of yourself as a novice, it actually is empowering in some ways, because what it means is if you're a novice, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say, I'm not there yet, and I need to put some extra work in. It's okay to say, I need to go at a slower pace than I used to on my old aircraft and in my old role, because I'm not ace of the base in this particular aircraft and role. So I'm allowed to act like a novice in some ways. So we want people to have that mindset as they go in, because then they don't give themselves such a hard time. If they walk in expecting to work at the same pace as they did when they were on the, back on the 330 and they'd been there for 10 years and they walk into this new role on the, A321 or the,
Sure.
737 and expect it to go exactly the same pace and still be as confident and familiar with everything, you're going to fall down because you've got the wrong mindset and the wrong approach to what you're walking into. So if you can walk in and go, I'm new, so I need to advocate for myself and say, hey, haven't done this before. Let's just slow down. Let's take a minute after we've done our pre-flight for me to double check I have all my ducks in a row before we push back. I haven't been to this port before. Let's not accept track shortening because I can't take that extra workload. Yeah. So that's one of the mindsets.
Okay.
Some of the other mindsets that we look at for people as they're going into training, and I love this because it's something they never taught when I was in primary school, but they do now, and it's a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. So back in my day when I was in school, you knew that there were some kids who were good at math and then there were some that were bad at math and some that were good at sports and bad at sports. And the idea with a fixed versus growth mindset is a fixed mindset is exactly what I said, and a growth mindset means that we acknowledge that if I put in effort and I try and put in the practice, I can get better at something. So it's not a case of I'm bad at math and that's how it's always going to be.
Yeah.
I can actually, if I put in effort at maths, then I can improve and get better in that area. So it's really easy for us to kind of start something new, and if we're not immediately doing pretty well, we start to feel a bit downtrodden and go, oh, I'm no good at this. Well, actually, no, you're not good at that yet. But once you put work in, you're going to do quite well. Okay, because how people improve is through the effort and the time and the practice that they put into something. So you want to go in and have that growth mindset, and also make sure that you embed that growth mindset in your own head, because we tend to have this negative self-talk in our head that is all around a fixed mindset. Inside our head, we're sitting there going, I'm no good at this.
But is that different to being self-critical where, oh, that was rubbish, compared to I'm no good at it?
It's similar. It's similar. So, but what a growth mindset is, it injects a bit of hope. It says, you don't have to turn it around and lie to yourself and say, I'm great at this.
Yes.
But it's saying, you know what? I'm not the best at this, but when I have practiced it a few more times, I'm going to improve.
And is that important for us as colleagues to say to the person you're flying with, say, yeah, good job, a few things to work on, but you'll get better at it, or that's much better than last time? Or
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because learning is an instant. It's a path. It's a curve that you're following. You improve over time. That's the natural way that people learn.
Okay.
And it's also supported by what we know from research. When people put in effort, when people put in time, they get better at something. We know that experts aren't born, they're made through effort and time and experience in that task.
So it doesn't gives me an excuse to turn up saying, I don't know anything, you teach me. So there's still pre-planning the 3 Ps in aviation, the 4 Ps in aviation, to do some preparation and some planning. And
absolutely, it's expected.
So so now where we used to update our iPad, we'd get the books, we'd get them out, we'd have a read, I'd highlight something. So this is now part of that journey is adding the mindfulness piece where, okay, I'm going to work on my mind going into training to to know that things are going to be different. I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to carry some stress.
Yeah, and in that document you mentioned there are a few ideas for if like many of our pilots you deal with checkitis or anxiety about going into training, there are some tools that you can use to help kind of shape your mindset, shape your perspective so that it doesn't become so overwhelming as you're walking into the place.
And as Carolyn said, the guide's available on all good Qantas bookstores in store at the moment. Yeah, so you can download it and have a read.
Yes, it
Fantastic.
is. Yeah.
So why can't I remember anything anymore? Maybe I couldn't remember anything before, but it's getting worse. I can't seem to retain... I can't get the information in. I'll sit there and in the good old days, I'd have the book, I'd highlight it, I knew what page it was on. Now I have an iPad and I don't know even what the manuals are called, let alone what page of the menu they're on. So
the question I would ask is, can you not get the information in your head or can you not get the information out?
Well, I can't incriminate myself, so perhaps I won't answer that question. No, I can... I operate on the vibe or it's the Marbo, it's Constitution. So it's there somewhere, but retaining or extracting it back out mainly just comes out as the vibe these days.
That is hard. And as part of my role, I sit with a lot of people when they have bumps in the road during training. Okay. So I sit there with them. We do one-on-one support sessions and see if there are any strategies that we can give them to help them get to whatever their goal is, the next part of their training path. And one thing I've noticed is that there are different study strategies that people can use that are more likely to lead to success. So
tidying my sock drawer and sorting out the recycling, they're all study strategies I normally use before I actually get... That's probably not the best way to be doing my study.
Maybe not. So one thing I have noticed is when I say talk to me about how you study, a lot of people will say, well, once I can actually get myself in the room with the book, which is a win in itself, we'll acknowledge the wins, they go, well, I look through my manual, I look through my books, and it starts to go along those lines. And what we know from the research is that it really comes down to memory. Okay, so if you think about our memories, we're talking about long-term memory, there's two main functions that I want to focus on, which are memory encoding, where you're putting the information into your long-term memory, and then retrieval, where you pulling that information out of your memory. What I tend to see is that people in their study tend to focus on the encoding, so they just try and put more information into their long-term memory.
Okay.
Whereas actually the study shows that as soon as you've got some foundational knowledge, you should try and move to practice retrieval of information. Okay? So rather than just trying to read, you should actually be trying to test yourself on that information as soon as possible before you even think you're ready.
That's like I do with where did I leave my car keys? Is that a test for that? So I know, put them somewhere and I'm going to test myself.
Look, that may be one way to start.
Okay.
That may be one way. But if you can be doing flashcards to start yourself or closing the books and trying to write it out from memory, and even if you're not quite ready, you actually making those mistakes at that point is a good way to remember in future.
Is it?
Okay, to make that mistake is a learning experience. And the other one is making sure that you actually move at some point from the conceptual information to the full song and dance of the job.
So is that the armchair flying type things that we've always spoken about that, going home and rehearsing it. But the trouble is, if I sit in the chair and look out the window, I normally fall asleep. Or...
I know. And I'm not a good visualizer. I really struggle with it.
And is that a learned skill? Is that a learned skill? You can learn to do that, do you think?
It can and can't be. There are actually some people who struggle to actually do the visualising.
Yes.
And in my opinion, I go, well, I don't make you imagine what the flight deck looks like in real life. So I just tell everyone, get one of those flight deck maps, like the systems maps, stick it on your wall, and you don't need to imagine it. It's right there in front of you. And do the bad mime and pretend to, reach out and hit switches, because you need the whole song and dance. And the way I think about it is, and I think I've said this to you before, it's kind of my Taylor Swift theory. If Taylor Swift forgot all her songs...
Shake it up, baby. That's not it. That's right, okay. Sorry, back to Taylor Swift.
But if she forgot all of her songs and she said, don't worry, Carolyn, I'm going to write out the lyrics at home, and then the next day I'm going to go on stage and put the whole song and dance together, and that's the entire preparation I'm going to do for my concerts. She'd be like, I don't think you're setting yourself up for success.
Okay.
Because when she got on stage, she might know the lyrics, but she's so busy trying to get the hand and footwork that the lyrics fall out of her head, right? So similarly with the flight crew, we want to make sure that they're actually practicing the whole song and dance before they step into the simulator. So the more, like, yes, there's going to be some time where you've got to get the foundational stuff down, understand. But as soon as possible, if you can start integrating that with the physical movements that you do in the flight deck and the verbal chatter that you do with your other flight crew members, then those become a sequence that's like a chain of tasks that's all linked together. And if you ever, sometimes people go, oh, do you know that song? And you go, no. And as soon as you start hearing those first couple of notes of the song, it starts coming back to you and you know all the lyrics, right?
Well,
and it's like that.
One line of every song.
Yeah.
You've probably seen that Blue Angels. There's a clip of the Blue Angels sitting around a table like this with their eyes closed doing that mental model. They're rehearsing together. They're literally flying there.
Yeah.
So they do it. People do this.
People absolutely do it.
Okay.
And, it's not to say that if you can visualize and that is comfortable for you, absolutely do that. But I would also kind of recommend looking at what tools you have to make it the whole song and dance. So have your flight deck system stuck on the wall. Some people have like a great setup and they have their joystick or some sort of physical thing, even better. You've also got your fixed base sim, your procedures trainer that you can book in and get time with. And it's great for getting the conceptual and the procedural stuff in one sequence with the physical and the verbal stuff. Because otherwise, if you haven't practiced that physical and verbal stuff and you go and sit in the sim, you're going to really struggle because you're going to be putting all this attention on trying to get those bits right that the procedure bit will fly off and you won't be able to retrieve it at the right time. And the other reason why I say it's so important to get this retrieval of memory right is if you think about what you're having to do in the simulator, it's all retrieving memory. No one's going to ask you to go, I want to know how well you can encode information.
Okay.
They want you to come in and go, okay, well, let's do this task that will require you to retrieve that information at a specific time. So if in your study you can spend time practicing the retrieval, you're practicing what you're going to actually be examined on and have to demonstrate in your training.
And do we learn differently as adults? Does a 7-year-old, they say they can learn French in a weekend and then they're coding the switch and knowing every hack for TikTok. And for me, I struggle to remember the passcode on my phone if I turn the Face ID off or...
There are some differences in how adults learn. Generally, there are some things that we like to put in place, like making sure that adults know here's the reason why you have to know this information. We know that as far as motivating behaviour, people are more likely to take on a behaviour or be motivated to learn a skill if they know there's a good reason that they're going to have to use it.
So the why behind it.
The why,
right? Okay.
Absolutely. So tell me why. And the other one is help me get involved, right? So it doesn't mean that we just kind of throw you in to the deep end, although every now and then there's a little bit of that.
Yes.
But usually there's a conceptual bit. You'll learn your manuals and then you might observe your crash buddy, your sim buddy, and then you get a chance to do it yourself. You might reflect on it in the briefing. These are all parts of that adult learning cycle that you need to do. So all of it's important. Sometimes people go, oh, I'm a visual learner or I'm a an oral learner or that sort of thing. And they kind of go, oh, I can't learn from reading the manual because I'm a visual learner. It's probably not true. You probably have a preference for one area, but as far as getting the best quality overall learning, it's best to push you through all these different types of learning. You might prefer one part of it, but it's good for you and you'll get a better end product if you can experience all of those visual and oral and tactile elements of the learning part.
There goes my 30 years of excuses about I learn better on the job, so...
You still need to know the procedures, though.
Let me check the time. This is Stick With It. And today I'm speaking to Carolyn Vaughan, who's the Human Factors Specialist, Aviation Psychology and Human Factors for the Qantas Group.
Yeah.
So we've been chatting about how we prepare ourselves for training, how it's okay to be a little kinder to ourselves, I guess, while I'm going to now give up my self-criticism and be very kind to myself, I guess. That's probably not quite the whole story, how... the concept of me being a visual learner, as in I ask everyone else to tell me about it and I go, okay, thank you very much, is probably only part of the story. So it's important that you still have to do the work, isn't it, Carolyn? You have to learn. I can't rely on Marbo and the vibe of everything. So what about then when this is going well, but it doesn't always go well, does it? So I've gone away, I've done my preparation, I'm in a good mind place, I'm zen, and I've turned up and things just aren't going quite right. It's that recovery from the bumps in the road that you talk about.
Yeah.
And we don't do well from criticism and poor performance because we're critical people. We like to do well.
Yeah, you take it hard, which I absolutely understand. Well, one thing we know is that the learning progress for a complex skill like learning to fly an aircraft or learning a new fleet is not as linear and straightforward as a simple skill. So we know that it's pretty common to get to a learning plateau where you've been doing pretty well for the first couple of sims, and then you get to a point and it just starts to feel a bit slower. It's a bit of a slog, and your learning starts to slow down. And it's really easy in that point to get into your head and go, oh my gosh, I've hit my limit. I'm no good at this. I'm not going to get through it. But it's actually a normal part of that learning path where your brain just needs a little bit of consolidation time.
Okay.
Yeah. And we know that if you shake things up, look at some
Taylor Swift again.
That's it.
Okay, I like this.
Shake it off. Shake it off.
I don't even. Okay.
There we go. But if you just start doing some things slightly differently, look at what slightly different strategies might work better for you, you can get past that plateau, right? And it's very rare that plateau is the end of the road for you. Okay? You can get past it. While you're in it, it feels like you're in a ditch or something like that. But, I've sat down with a lot of different people over the last couple of years, and people can get through that plateau. Absolutely.
Can we, or have we designed training paths effectively to accommodate this? Because the manufacturer builds a training path that's minimum cost and minimum time.
Yeah. Away
you go. And some people can handle that, but not all of us can we?
It's really difficult. I think as a bigger organisation, according to what the manufacturer tells us a training path should be, we pick a number of weeks that we think will fit most people, but it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. If you think about kids when they're little, when they're learning to walk, some learn at 6 months, some learn at, a year and a half. But it doesn't mean they're probably not, most of them walking when they're 15, right? So just because you take a little bit longer to get to the end of the road is no reflection on how good a pilot you've been. I've had people sit with me on one of these one-on-one sessions who are now training pilots, managers, all these, different roles who are excellent pilots. So just taking a little bit longer to get to the end of that isn't a reflection. So what I'm saying is that the training paths, it's hard to find a one-size-fits-all solution because everyone's so different.
Yes.
So we do our best, and I think what I have seen I've been with Qantas 15 years now, and I've seen some big changes in the training department where they are very open. If you're in that point and you go, I am really struggling and I think I need some extra help, put your hand up early. Put your hand up, talk to your training manager and say, I'm really struggling with this. Is there anything that we can do? And look at the training path or whatever it might be. They can probably find some sort of solution to give you a bit of breathing space to help you out. The problem we have is we've got pilots who are too dedicated, I think is the problem. No one wants to let anyone else down.
No,
they go,
we're very task-orientated.
That's it.
Absolutely.
And so they come in, they go, if I don't do this sim, then my sim buddy gets messed up, and the trainer, and can I get in the sim? And they worry about all these things, and they end up convincing themselves to keep going, to stick with it. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's a call out for you. So with that, they convince themselves, but they should have actually gone with their first instinct and gone and asked for help. And it's much easier to recover and get you the support you need when you put your hand up early.
So if we go right back to the training, we're about to commence training. We've in this lot of allocation, lots of folks have got training slots, which is fantastic. So some pre-preparation we can do. We can think about our mindset. How am I going to do this training? I'm going to change from being an expert, well, perhaps not in my case, but most people are experts, to a novice mindset.
Yes. I would look at that. I would also look at, what's going on in your life. It's really common for someone to come and say, look, I've had a bump in the road. By the way, I have been renovating the house for the last same 6 months, and I've just had a new baby and all of this sort of
Perfect
stuff.
time to take training.
And I don't know what it is about a training path, but they're an absolute magnet for life, challenges.
Okay.
Some things you can't, anticipate, and I get that.
Yes.
But sometimes you can anticipate them.
Yep.
And I think especially now where there is a lot of movement with training, when you get that slot, it's so exciting. And I know that you've been looking forward to it, but it's a really good idea to have a pause and go, is this the best time for me?
Okay.
Because there may be other stuff going on your life that can't be moved, and it might actually be better and you'd have a better chance of success in that training path if you tried to just delay it a couple of months while that life issue's going on.
Okay.
So it's not to say never, but it's just to saying if you want to give yourself the best chance of success, and knowing how demanding a training path can be, give yourself a break. Don't try and do everything absolutely all at once. It's not like it was 15 years ago where you'd wait 10 years for these slots to come up. It's quite different.
Okay. Then dealing with our emotions during training, some days we're positive, other days. And I used to say, so I flew the old 767, the old simulator, and you could always tell how well a session was going to go by that first engine failure. If you did that well and you didn't crash, and you go, sweet, this is going to be good 4 hours of training.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the same, if we go away from the simulator, go back to life and say, is my first couple of sims going well? I think it's all going to go well, but we reach that, we can very easily plateau, and some people do plateau. So it's building that resilience to be able to say, okay, I understand what's going on now.
Absolutely.
But we keep working hard, but it might be a change of environment or
and I think looking after those, general life strategies that you use to build resilience. So looking at, your diet and your exercise and your sleep, going outside and seeing nature and making sure you still set in time to socialize with friends. I think sometimes people go, I've got to be head down. I feel guilty when I'm not looking at the books. So I just want to look at the books. And it's actually worse for their attention span when they're doing their study and motivation and all of that. And your brain actually needs those breaks and that social time and that nourishment to get the best out of it. So you want to make sure that you're looking after your whole body and mind.
So in the old days when we had tapes, they were a 45-minute tape. So studying for the HSC, I put a tape in, press play, and that was a 45-minute block to study. I'm not saying I studied for 45 minutes, but the tape play. So it's about setting realistic boundaries. I can only study for X, Y, Z. I can still go out and have a coffee with my friends during training, things like that.
Absolutely. And I'd schedule it in.
Okay.
So, if you can kind of go, say, well, I think there's the Pomodoro technique, which is just half-hour blocks or 25-minute blocks of study. If you can actually set this time aside and motivate yourself to be like, when that time's on, I'm 100% on, that really focused study time is probably worth 3 hours of study with the cricket on in the background. So, sorry. But that really focused sort of style of study.
Okay.
In that document, there's also some information about a technique called deliberate practice. And what it is a way of organising your study to set yourself a goal, 100% focus on, doing whatever that study task is, and then reflect on the study task and how you've gone. And the idea is that there's lots of things in the study that are easy to put into study. So there's things that are acronyms or things that you kind of already know pretty well, and it's fun to study things that you're good at,
yes.
Okay?
Yep, that's how I study.
But that is not how you become an expert. It's not how you become better. When I was a kid, I used to play piano. They used to make me practice every morning, and I would go in and quickly play 3 things that I learnt the year before, just so I could get through it and get out of there as quickly as possible.
You practice a bit you
Never
can't
got
do.
better.
Yeah,
Terrible
absolutely.
at the piano, right? But with deliberate practice, the idea is that you have a hard conversation and you go, where can I get bang for buck for my study? What do I actually need to work on? And you kind to yourself, you know what? I've already nailed that thing. I'm really good at those bits over there. I don't need to spend more time on that. But when I last got feedback, it was around these sections here. That's where I'm going to spend my time. And that's actually how you're going to get better. Not just by using that scattergun of, I've got to actually read everything. Sit down and go, where do I need to improve the most? Let's focus there. And that's where I'm going to get the most bang for buck for the time that I'm spending in study.
So, Carolyn, there's always help available, isn't there?
Yeah.
So we come to EAP, come to PAN, APA welfare, come to your training manager,
Yep.
your sim buddy, your
Yep.
mates. There's always help.
Someone. And, you can get caught up in seeing a schedule in front of you and trying to go along with what the schedule says and not wanting to mess anyone else around. They'll be really understanding if you need help. Okay. It may not feel like it when you're looking at that schedule and you're telling yourself certain things, but if you say, I need help with this, I've seen managers, I've seen all sorts of people who will bend over backwards to find something that works for you. I think our organisation has changed and become a lot more understanding in this respect in the time that I've been there. And I know that we want to look after people in this. We also have that, organisation trying to push trained certified pilots out the other end.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Of course, there's a commercial
but
imperative.
we don't want to. We want to look after people while they're going through that. So I think the key message would be, as you're going through, if you need help, put your hand up. If you're your fitness for duty for when you're flying, that should be the same fitness of duty criteria for training. So don't just try and push through just because it's only a training session.
Great advice.
Definitely put your hand up there. Talk to someone, whether it's EAP, whether it's PAN, whether it's a trusted friend or, someone that you can, feel comfortable talking to. But there absolutely are people out there who want to help. And they just may not realise that help is needed.
Fascinating. Carolyn, thank you so much for your time. So if you're preparing for some training, Qantas, fantastic training supplement, I guess, preparing for a successful training path.
Yep.
Carolyn, thank you for coming in. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. This has been Stick With It, and I'm Andrew Taylor.